Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Conn Report. Wherever you get your podcast, you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media. That's AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can always read my work on ESPN.com. Joining me in a few minutes is Sam Fortier from the Washington Post. We're going to get into a lot of on-field stuff. Sam, how's progress? Is this team better or worse than Sam thought entering training camp? All that good stuff. Defensive talk, not just offense. Questions about the line. What about comments about Sam Howell? Everything. So stay tuned for that. But before I get there, I wanted to just give you a little bit of up-to-date news on several players. So let's start with Jamin Davis, because today it's Thursday. He had a court hearing today, and what they determined is he's going to have a jury trial on March 4th of 2024. So there was a concern, would the judge accept a plea deal or not now? The Davis's attorney said that the prosecuting attorney came to them with a new deal about an hour before the hearing. And so they pushed for the jury trial instead. So anyways, what it means is no jail time during the season, and it gets pushed off to 2024. And it wouldn't be shocking if they work something out beforehand, but after this, for something after the season. Now, Chase Young. So basically what we know is the status for week 1 is uncertain. And you probably could figure that, given that he had the stinger and he hasn't taken any contact yet, which certainly means he hasn't been cleared for contact. Now, this week, the practices were there were no pads. So you really didn't know about that. But again, he hasn't done anything contact wise since that first preseason game. So naturally he hasn't been cleared. And Ron Rivera did say he's progressing. They feel like he is progressing well, whatever that means, we'll find out. And then he's going to be examined again. So we won't have any sort of status report on him until Wednesday, when it's the first time teams have to release an actual injury report. So, and I did talk to some people close to Young who they say it's not as bad as what people think. We'll see. I don't know exactly what that means either. That's the problem with all this. What I do know is that he's uncertain for the season opener against Arizona, and we go from there. The other thing we know is that he wasn't placed on short-term IR, so that's at least a positive sign for it to see. Because if they felt there was going to be something that was going to linger for an extended time, then you would have placed him. You would think they would place him on short-term IR and just let him rest up with it. They did not do that. F.A. Obata went on to IR. He's got an issue with his patella, and I don't know exactly what the issue is, but he has it. And so, but it is definitely they plan on a short-term stay for Obata. The problem is that he's your top reserve defensive end. He can also rush inside. So without him now, this is why you keep all those defensive ends. And it's James Smith-Williams, Casey Toohill. Maybe we're going to see some Andre Jones. I don't know what the plan is for them just yet, but it would be, but they do have some depth there, and they do have some veteran depth there with Smith-Williams and Toohill. And so they are covered in Chase Young's. If Chase Young does not play, they will be okay. And you can't stop Arizona's offense without Chase Young. You got some problems. So, and I think they should be okay there. Now, Terry McLaurin, no update. What I do know is that he's still been seen in a walking boot as of yesterday or as of Wednesday. Initially, I was told he'd be out of it on Tuesday. It's just, that's a precautionary thing because the number one thing for that injury is rest. And so they're trying to have him stay off it as much as possible, but we won't have a status update again until next Wednesday. Just keep it there was optimism. I think there still is optimism. There's also uncertainty. Both things are true. You can be optimistic that he might play. Optimistic does not mean 100%. So Kendall Fuller told me he's playing. Logan Thomas, he's in good shape. He said that he has no restrictions. He feels really good. He's been out there. So I think those guys are in really good shape. The only two that I'm wondering about right now would be McLaurin and Chase Young. Finally, on the team name, and I always hesitate to dip my toes into this water because it's not going back to the old name. Now, Jason Wright came out on JP Finley's show earlier this week and said that's going back to the name Redskins is not under consideration. And it never has been. And that's why I haven't discussed it a lot, because it's never been realistic. And even with all the petitions, I think people understand that fans liked the name and that they would want it back. So that's the big problem is not, do the fans want it? It's, will the sponsors put up with it? The sponsors knew the fans liked it before and they pulled out. And I don't think the league would support it at this point either. So anyways, it's not my call. Don't shoot the messenger. And you can rip on Jason Wright all you want about like, well, who cares what he says? Well, he's the team president, and folks, he's getting it from somewhere. Trust me, he's not going out there without full knowledge. The owner has full knowledge of what Jason Wright is saying. And so there you go. You can replace Jason Wright as president. The next one will say the same thing. It's not going back. And again, it's, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just telling you the way it is. Now, could it change in the future? Perhaps. That's a different discussion, but it's not going back. And Jason Wright said it, and it's what I've consistently heard from people in the Harris Group all along. Anyway, that's it from me. So here's my conversation with the Washington Post's Sam Fortier.
The NFL is here, and it's all about the sweet offers from DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers can pocket $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5 on any NFL game.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code FIELDGOAL to sign up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See dkng.co/football for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply.
College football fans, are you ready for week one? DraftKings Sportsbook is hooking you up with a can't-miss offer to start the season strong. This week, new customers can bet just $5 on college football and score $200 in bonus bets instantly. Anything can happen in college football. Your team could go from unranked to dynasty mode in just a couple of years. Change comes fast. The only thing that's a lock is the great offers from DraftKings Sportsbook. Life's more fun when you're in on the action. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code KEIM, K-E-I-M. New customers can score $200 in bonus bets instantly when they bet just $5 on college football. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code KEIM. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See dkng.com/football for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply.
So I'm here with Sam Fortier from the Washington Post, and Sam is disappointed because he didn't get to do my opening like he likes to do, but I had to do it earlier because we're talking before the Jamin Davis situation is maybe resolved. And if it is, you'll hear about it before you even get to this point. Anyways, so Sam, I want to start with let's take a look at the roster in general and just what we've seen this summer. Do you feel better or worse about where this team is at going into the season?
First off, I think that we should start with hello and welcome to this segment of my podcast. I would say that overall I feel better about the roster, but that's really driven by one thing, which is that Sam Howell looked better in the preseason than I expected. I thought he would have a few more growing pains. Obviously, he had a couple sacks that were his fault. Those are things you expect to get cleaned up. But when you talk about his mobility, his ability to extend plays, the arm strength, kind of the way that they're able to use those playmakers, even though it was the preseason, he wasn't facing the team's top defenders. They weren't scheming against him. I just thought he looked a little bit more in control. And when you're talking about a team's fortunes during the season, obviously it's so heavily tied to the quarterback. There are still questions that I have about him. I really wonder, is he going to be able to execute from under center? We didn't see him do that a ton, and that's something he didn't do a lot in college either. But right now, I would say that I feel better about Sam Howell, and therefore I feel better about the roster.
And I know you've talked and written about RPOs and all that. How significant do you think that will be to the potential success for Howell and the offense.
Instrumental. It is massive. Like if you go back and look at the air raid offense that Phil Longo called for Howell at North Carolina, almost entirely shotgun based, so many RPOs, so much quick game. And you know, I talked to Howell and I talked to Fromm about quick game, and that's just really going to help him mentally pre-snap. It's the sort of thing where you get to the line, you pick a side of the field. Hey, do I like the leverage here better? Do I like, you know, this matchup better? Do I have more space over here? You pick a side, you pick a matchup, and then you say, okay, I'm going to throw it to a spot, and you get it out of the ball out of your hands really quickly. That is going to, I think, accentuate the strengths of this offense, which is the receivers, and it's going to minimize the weaknesses, which obviously is the offensive line. So to me, quick game is not only instrumental for what they've built, but also how their quarterback can be comfortable.
And I think you brought up the point too. This is one of the things when we talk about the offensive line, there's always have to wait and see how does the scheme impact it. And the quick game and the RPOs designed to create hesitation by the defensive line, cause confusion, and the quick game designed to get the ball out of your hands. And that's by definition, it's quick. So, that's the part that we've seen a lot of it, but we don't know how it's going to look in the season and how the impact on the line.
And one thing that Fromm told me is like quick game will not always look like quick game, and I think that what he means is there are certain, if there's a press coverage and a certain look, like the route would convert to a deep route because they like certain matchups, they like certain coverages. So like quick game is going to be a foundation, but even if you see them take a deep shot, even if you see them do a true drop back, their goal, I think Eric Bieniemy's goal is, hey, let's do quick game, let's do RPO to get these guys frustrated, to get them off their pass rushing lanes, get them out of a rhythm, basically do the exact opposite of what happened when the Eagles were teeing off on Carson Wentz and had those 8 sacks last year. Like, don't let them get in a rhythm. So I think that that is it. It's going to be more important than just like stats in the stat sheet. You know what I mean? I think it's going to be a real basis of their scheme.
And it's funny because I also think I've seen, and this is a good sign too, they love that 3rd and 4 mesh last year. It's like 3rd and 4 mesh, like 3rd down and 4. I wonder if Terry's going to do a crosser and the tight end coming across. So
it's amazing, man.
It is. But this preseason, what I saw is okay, this time they're going to look like a mesh, and then he's cutting up through the linebackers in the middle. And so they did that a few times to throw a curveball off of that. But the funny thing is too, with like Mahomes in Kansas City, they use that quick game a lot too. And it's, it's not just that they're sitting there firing away, like get the ball to your hands, take the profits, right? And like even Peyton Manning excelled at that, and get the defense to start climbing up a little bit. Now you take your shot. That's the theory.
Right. And I think that one thing that's really interesting to me is if you look at Patrick Mahomes' targets last year, I don't know the exact number, but like a huge share of them were at or behind the line of scrimmage. And I think that's in response to a lot of defenses doing the Vic Fangio thing, playing 2 high safety shells and saying, hey, we're going to force you to sustain drives, beat us short and intermediate throws. I don't think that Washington, at least Sam Howell, will come in with as much credibility as Mahomes for defenses, obviously. So I'm curious, like, is he going to see as much too high coverage? Obviously, that's a big thing in the league right now, but like, is he going to have to make those checkdowns, or are there going to be more opportunities to throw it deep because people aren't respecting him as much right away?
But the receivers, that's who you're going to worry about too.
Right. But that's so if you're throwing short and intermediate timing routes, you are betting on yards after the catch. You are betting on their explosion. And it makes a lot of sense, right? Because they're more proven. We know, like, we have a much higher degree of confidence for what Terry and Curtis and Jahan can do than what Sam can do. Right. And I think that really, like in the Cleveland game, you saw that where I think it was after a nice run by B-Rob, but like Sam hit Curtis like for a 5-yard like quick route, and then Curtis created 5 yards after the catch. He slipped through a couple tacklers right up the middle. And so to me, like, that's the perfect play of like, that's not flashy. People aren't going to remember that play, but that is what's going to drive this offense.
1,000% agree. And I love that you brought it up because it was the 5 yards after the catch that absolutely mattered. And it's how you sustain drives, and it's how because like this is going to be, again, patient strike. But they also, the other thing, because since Bieniemy was hired, for Rivera has been getting guys the ball in space, and that's the number one thing they've talked about, because you have guys like Jahan and Terry can hurt you long, he can hurt you short, Diami can hurt you deep, Curtis after the catch, Gibson after the catch. So that's been the big thing, is getting the guys the ball in space. Do you have confidence that we're going to see that?
Yeah, I think they will absolutely target that. Some of those shorter routes, some of those in-breaking routes, like the quicker stuff. Like Sam has the arm strength to get it on the outside. Like if you need to throw it out, the thing that's interesting to me is if they do that, if they really hit that and really accentuate it, make it part of their offense. If defenses respond and they start playing single high and they start trying to take away that space underneath, I should say, can Sam then beat them deep? And I think there are reasons to believe that he can. Like that cover 2 hole shot to Terry in the Dallas game, like that's an unbelievable throw. But can he do that consistently? Can he do it? If defenses are trying to force him into those throws. So it's like I'm really fascinated by that part of it. And I would say also one other thing, like kind of a tangent that I've been thinking of is like I love analytics. I love looking at the data, meshing it with the film. Data considers quick game anything that's 2.5 seconds or faster. But I was talking to Sam about this and he was like, that actually seems like way too long.
It does. It does.
Like, I think that a lot of times you're going to be seeing throws in under 2 seconds or 2.25 seconds. Like, because when you're talking about designed quick game or some of those RPOs, in the RPOs, you have to get it out because your linemen are going to be too far downfield if you don't do it faster. But like these are things that are going to be really, really fast that he's going to have to get the ball out. And so I think that that's like a note that I would put out for people.
And you go back and look at the Dallas game as an example with Jahan a couple of times where it's like that ball's out. Now you give him a chance to split the seam and get 20 yards after the catch. That's a big deal. And you saw like, and even this is where a lot of the footwork comes into play too, even on the RPOs. And you watch like, how does he handle the RPO handoffs? Because there was a play, and I've talked about this before, but the first run in the Browns game where Robinson gets stuffed in the backfield, Sam's got to take a step or two back on his footwork to create a better path for him, but also to sell the linebacker on what might happen. So those are little things, but I think he got better with that throughout the summer. So I feel pretty confident in what I think he can do. I just don't know, like, when does he become, is he going to be a good quarterback, but when, right? I mean, that's kind of, it's funny how like, this is the best quarterback play since Alex Smith in 2018, possibly going into the year from camp. I mean, you've been here. This is what, your fourth season. So this is follow suit. Do you think this is?
Yeah. But like, I think that I go back and I think about like, I think when we talked about this in the podcast last year, like, I thought it was the best roster that they had. And I know that, I'm not saying Carson Wentz that we believed in him, but like
but not to interrupt you. Yeah. Well, I did interrupt you.
You always
do. I did.
So it's
but to the roster, like they were 8-1 with quarterback play, which wasn't outstanding.
Right. I think that like, maybe it's more when we talk about like, how many wins do you think we'll have? Like, I'm always wary of being trapped in the myopic hype machine that is training camp and being like, oh, he's going to be really good. And then you find out like a defensive coordinator game plans for him one time and, he can't beat it. Exactly. Like if we talk about, hey, Dallas was, they were in their certain headspace last week, in the last game last year. So I'm always wary of buying too much into that. But I mean, yeah, man, like I'm ready to get hurt again.
But it's, I think the thing that I like with him are traits, and it's what they talk about, which is, his demeanor, how he handles things, his work, how he studies. He's got a good arm. We know that. And so I think all those are what we've seen as well. And that's behind the scenes stuff. And how much is that going to matter right now? I don't know. I think long-term it bodes well for him.
Totally. But then like, I think that, okay, so I'm with you, right? But I'm going to like try to think of reasons why this wouldn't be true. And like, to me, the Baltimore game, yes, they looked great in the Baltimore game, right? But they also put themselves in so many difficult positions. Like that sack put them in third and long, and then they overcame it. And like, they did that, they had the 2-minute drive, which, had some plays where, they could have hurt themselves with penalties and drops and things like that. And I think Sam wasn't super crisp, but he was able to overcome adversity. And is that a trait, or was that a really small sample size in a preseason game? I don't think we know that yet.
We absolutely don't know it. And here's the other thing too. And my analogy is like, you go to the driving range and you hit 10 balls, right? And 7 of them are pretty good. It's those other freaking 3 are the ones that I hit on the golf course. It's a lock. So you don't know, like you can be on the driving saying, oh yeah, I'm in a groove, I'm going to do this. And you go out there and you shank one. It's like, God, I only did that once, but that's the one that gets out. So, I'm not saying you're going to shank him. He's a good golfer, by the way, but you don't know what's going to carry through to the games, because if we see a bad play in practice, we see 5 good, what is the impact of that one bad play, that one bad throw, and the spot it puts you in? And then can you respond? I think one of the things I've liked about what we saw in the preseason was there were a couple of times they were in bad spots and they overcame. That's a good sign. But, you're right. We don't know. And this is why I say, I think he'll be good. I just don't know when. And is it going to be with, is he going to get the time, So that's the hard part.
I think he has a really long leash. If the question is he going to get the time? Because to me, we've talked about this before, like Josh Harris, selling him on a vision for what this team is and why Ron Rivera should remain the head coach. Like it's not Jacoby Brissett. It's all on Howell.
You're right. I mean, if Howell works, it's Rivera can say, listen, this was the guy that I wanted in there. This is the guy, they're 9-8 or whatever it is.
And it still might not matter, but like that's the ticket.
It is the ticket. So going back to, and I know like there was a little bit of a kerfuffle. I don't know if that's the right word.
That's such like an old person word.
Well, it is. Well, I mean, I want to speak your language. So it is an older word. I grant that. I was sitting in my Davenport last night and I thought of that word. Do you even know what a Davenport is? My grandma used to call a couch a Davenport. Now, and is
it a brand of couch?
No, I think it was just a couch. We always laughed about it, but like she died 20 some years ago and she was 86. So we're going way back, man. Yeah. So we've taken a bad detour here. But anyways, so Ron with his comments about Howell to Albert Breer. And I know, we've heard those before, but it became a bigger thing. And then Pat McAfee amplified some thoughts on it. What did you make of him saying he didn't know exactly what he had? And now my 2 cents is I know that they wanted to see him against Houston or someone like that. Get a feel, try to get him in a game. It never arose. Do you think it would have mattered? And how much should be made of what his comments were?
Look, anytime a coach says, I didn't know how good he was, like that's a concern, right? But at the same time, I think it is a little bit more reasonable. Well, there's 2 parts to this. Is the message I think was like generally kind of reasonable because like, yeah, you don't know who the guy is. And if you're pushing for a playoff spot, you can't play him. And, I think that's one of the reasons why like when the offense couldn't, really blow it out against Houston, that's one of the problems is like you couldn't see him. The other part is I think that, and we've talked about this, either Ron's over communication or unclear communication often gets him in hot water, like quarterback last year, or, we could be eliminated or Bieniemy. Like there are just so many instances of him doing this. So I think that like at some point you have to say, hey, it's not the message itself, which to me is a little odd, but mostly fine. And you have to say like, hey, like this is on you to stop creating these distractions that you've, bemoaned for the last 3 years. So I think that it's not a damnable sentiment, but the fact that you're continuing to express it and put yourself in these situations is concerning and probably not befitting of the head coach.
And I think sometimes too, because you try to like get inside someone's head and what are they trying? I think part of it is that they really like what they see in him and they kind of wish they had known he may have been. Right. And again, like they weren't going to put him in October. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't at that point and Heineke was playing well enough and they were winning. And it wasn't until those last couple of weeks, but I don't want to go back but yeah.
But can I make one clarification? Because I thought McAfee was fine. The one thing that I want to clear up is like, Taylor did not tell them to start Sam out of like some good Samaritan, take a look at this young guy. It's like, you went back to Carson the week before. I'm about to hit free agency for the first time when I could get paid.
And I don't want to risk all that. That's absolutely.
Exactly. I don't want to look bad. I don't want to get hurt. Like it's just, it's silly to me that like,
it wasn't Rudy.
Yeah, exactly. That's like kind of how it came off. And it's a weird thing.
Like I will say there's 2 parts to that whole thing. He did say, I think this kid can be really good. Right.
Yes.
But there was like, he's like, you can't put me back out there after you benched me for this. And I'm going into free agency and I want to get to there healthy. That's also part of the whole situation.
If we really want to get in depth on this, Ron only saw Sam, I think likely only really saw Sam in the Dallas game last year because he chose Carson and Carson botched the Cleveland game so badly. Like, I think it's arguable that he did allow himself to see Sam.
And so for all those of you like that was the grand plan. So, that's a good point. There is still time for one more family adventure this summer. The country's largest climbing and zipline park is open 7 days a week until Labor Day, with 8 different levels, 16 courses, 250 climbing obstacles, and over 4,000 feet of zip lines The Adventure Park at Sandy Spring, located in Montgomery County, Maryland, is the perfect place to spend the last few days of summer. Once you're back on the ground, head over to Axe Throwing and try one of their brand new games. You can play Battleship, Blackjack, throw at traditional targets, or even upload your own images. They are now accepting group and family reservations for this fall. Can't make it out before school is back in session? Not to worry. The Adventure Park is open Friday through Sunday every weekend this fall. To end the summer right, listeners of this show can now get $10 off any ticket by entering the promo code KEIM23DC at checkout. That's KEIM, K-E-I-M 23DC at checkout. There is still time to get outside and join the adventure at theadventurepark.com. What is going into the season biggest concern? Is it the line or?
It's the offense, just because while there are promising signs, Sam being one of them, Eric Bieniemy being another, the offensive line is obviously a concern, but like, we just don't know how there's just so much uncertainty. Like, basically, to me, the offense last year had 3 big question marks: offensive coordinator, quarterback, offensive line. And they didn't replace any of those with like a sure thing.
Right.
Like, even though you feel good about Eric Bieniemy, and even though you're like, oh, like, I think he, the details, he's got it. Like, is he going to have a play caller sense of rhythm? Is he going to be able to pick the right play at the right time? Like, again, we just don't know.
We don't know.
And,
we can speculate,
right.
And I think he adds a lot. We've seen it. You can feel it. I think there's a reason why there's more urgency this year, a better tempo in practice. I think the practice has been a lot better. You can credit a lot to Bieniemy, right? But we don't know as a play caller what's it going to look like.
And if it was Kyle Shanahan calling this offense, and it was Derek Carr as a quarterback, and then the offensive line was what it was, it's like, oh, okay, we have 2 of 3 things that we have a pretty good amount of confidence in what they're going to be. I think there is a significant level of uncertainty in all 3 of these components, and stacking them on top of each other is like, I don't think a risk manager would sign off on this offense.
It would be, and that's where I say, like, because even though you hear the stuff about Bieniemy, and we tout it, we're the ones who we're talking about.
Are you saying preach?
I was going to say preach, but we're not preaching, but we are talking about it. So, but my point has always been from the start, like, you don't know when it's going to mesh. It takes time, and
you know when it's going to mesh. It's on 3rd and 4th.
Well, that's a different play caller. But yes, but you don't know how long it's going to take to come together. You don't know, like, is the offensive line better? Well, I think certainly it looks better because you have better guards, I think, and I think you have a healthier center situation, and I like Gates's demeanor and all that. So you think but how much better? Is it better enough? Is it better enough to help Howes and what Bieniemy wants to do? That's what I don't know. Is there anybody on offense that you say, okay, I don't know if I'd say I can't wait to see this guy, but like, this guy could be the one I really want to watch?
Do you mean in terms of like guys that I think are really good and I want to see them perform, or guys that
We'll go with that. We'll go with that one.
Because to me, how could the answers not be Terry and Jahan? Like,
well, we already know what Terry can do.
Oh, so you're saying the underrated part?
Or somebody like Brian Robinson or Jahan Dotson, because those are the 2 guys, right? Like, Robinson, to me, you
were asking me a question you already knew the answer to?
No, but that's my answer. So what's your answer?
No. Finish your
No, because with Robinson, we never really saw him last year. I don't think we saw glimpses. We started to see it toward the end, but I don't know. Like, can you really say that was truly him, given what he came through? And Dotson, I just think, man, that kid just gets open. And so I'm really curious to see if he's, the injuries last year hurt him, but that's another guy that you're saying he could take a big step.
The touchdown route was so sick. Like I would love to watch that, like, see that more. But I think the underappreciated answer, or an answer that people might not expect, is I think Cole Turner, particularly because he's going to have to play a bigger role in this offense with the injury of Armani Rogers, and Logan's obviously battled injuries. But to me, there were a couple actually really nice blocks coming across the formation in the preseason.
Good slice blocks.
Good, exactly. So that's not a part of his game, I think, that we appreciate, that was really developed coming in. And, as particularly in scramble drills, I think he's had some really nice moments in practices and in preseason. The 4th and 3 was a huge one. So I think that like I'm excited to see him continue to develop if we're talking about like, a guy who's going to play a role, not be a driver in the sense of a Jahan or a Brian Robinson.
And that's a good answer. And I think because he also and first of all, we talked to Logan yesterday and he said there's no restrictions on him and all that. I would think he's going to play in the opener. We'll just say that now. Well, but we'll find out more next week, but he said there's no restrictions, feels good. But he gives you something different from Logan too. Cole does. I think Logan gives you that stout presence over the middle, short yardage, red zone, third downs. Cole can run some different routes. I think gives him, he can become a little bit more like a bigger wide receiver in that regard. That's where it can really kind of pay off.
And I think another answer that is maybe like a little bit flying under the radar is I think Sadiq Charles, if he can truly like make good on his potential. I mean, the athleticism, which you talked about with the guards, both guards are obviously more athletic now. And I just think I've seen some real nice strength from Sadiq against bull rushes. I've seen him get outside. I think that he can be everything they want him to be. Talking to Travell Wharton actually in June, and he basically said it's all for Sadiq. It's about staying healthy and it's about staying mentally right, because sometimes he can get bored if he's doing the same thing, even if it's working, or he can lose confidence. And so if Sadiq can stay healthy, if he can stay mentally right, I think that they would make a significant upgrade at the guard position.
And that's a good point. So let's switch to the defense. We're all assuming that the defense is going to be really good. And, what is your take on them? Did you see what you wanted to see from the defense this summer?
Yes, I saw, the safety rotations. I saw, them matching up personnel. I think Cam Curl can still be your X factor against a tight end or a running back. The line is all together. And even though that hasn't necessarily produced results in the past, I see it too much. I think there's obviously some big question marks. Two things that I would say is the first one is defense is just inherently less predictable in the NFL because they don't have the ball and all these things are happening. And the second one is they have never started fast. They have always had problems, at least in the first 3 weeks. And they've had to make a personnel move, whether it's benching William Jackson last year or moving Landon Collins from safety to linebacker the year before. Or downhill attacking player or whatever they called it, whatever. But they always have problems in the early in the year. And so and that's something Jack Del Rio's been preaching to the players, and every single player who's come to a press conference has said, we need to start fast. Yeah. And so it's until they do it, you can't believe it. But again, this is sort of like a Sam Howell. I feel like we're having the same conversation with Sam Howell.
Correct. Well, and I will say somebody wrote a really good story about them needing to start fast early this week. Beautiful Pulitzer Prize winning piece by myself.
I must have missed that one.
I think a lot of people may have. But that is but they're starting fast because even I think one of the benefits they have is it's the fourth year of their system, second year in the zone match. I think the zone match with some young guys without Cam Curl in there and with William Jackson in there, who was just lost in that, it added up to I want to say they had in the first 4 games, 17 pass plays of 20 or more yards. And then in the next 13, they have I want to say 28. So
breaking up.
I like True Media too. I just don't wear it on my chest.
Literally.
Right. So you go from 4 a game to 2 a game. That's significant. And so I think they feel like that's more of what they can and should be. Then and the thing I've been touting too is the ability to disguise coverages. I think this is a very smart secondary, and you've seen it a lot during the summer. That ability I think can pay off for the front. Then you need Chase and Montez to really become the kind of player. You need one of them to become the kind of player that you think they could be to really transform this team.
Absolutely. I think that is a perfect summation. And then you have to get enough. You have to get enough out of the linebackers, which are stitching those 2 units together. Cody Barden, we've talked about, he still is getting up to speed in this defense. I think he can do it, but obviously, there are certain fits that he needs to get better at. And then Jamin, as you are going to talk about earlier in this episode, obviously has an uncertain future. And so I think that, if those 3 parts can come together, I will. And I should say that I commend Jack Del Rio for going to more traditional spot drop country coverage to the zone match, which has obviously become more popular around the league, because that's not something that I think a lot of defensive coordinators or a lot of coaches who have been in the league and has been in as many positions as him always do. You can't rely on that. So for him to switch, I thought was a cool bit of evolution for like old dog learns new tricks.
And because it can be a tough one for players learning. Like you see Benjamin St-Juste, I think feels more comfortable in that. And you can see it maybe resulting in more plays for him. We talk a lot about Emmanuel Forbes, but I think St-Juste is a guy who looks really comfortable in that role, and it could result in, that, which is what they need. They need to get the big plays. Sam, any final thoughts going, just where we're at in there? Anything stat wise you want to get off your chest?
Stat wise, no, I think that
anything coming up that you want to tell?
I have some projects coming up. I actually, people should look out for, I am writing about whether or not Terry McLaurin is actually still underrated. I feel like underrated is a word that gets tagged to him all the time by all the analysts, by us, some of us for sure. And I think that in the last year or so with his contract, with the way people view him, the way people rate him, I think that perception is changing. And so I wrote 1,500, 2,000 words about it. So hopefully people will check it out.
There you go. And where can they find it?
They can find it. Wow. God, he's a good podcast host. At Sam, the number 4TR, SAM, the number 4TR on Twitter, or in the Washington Post or at WashingtonPost.com.
There you go. And the funny thing is with Terry, on our list of top 100, he was at 36 this year. And then he also made, in our receiver, Jeremy Fowler did a thing looking at the top 10 in each position. He was top 10.
Do you know where he was last year?
I don't know.
He was honorable mention.
Okay, there you go. So that's look at that. That's now you only have to read 1,490 words. So there you go. Sam, thanks as always for joining me. Always enjoy having him on because I think he's very smart. Give him a follow, give him a read, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's it from this time. Thanks to Sam for joining me. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you next time. That's it for this episode. Thanks to Sam for joining me, and thank you, as always, for tuning in. I'll be back on, I think it's Sunday or maybe Monday. Check back Sunday when I'm going to have former Washington tight end Logan Paulson on as we look ahead to the opener. I'll talk to you next time.